Holy Joe Walsh.
Thank God for the Second Amendment. This is why I so believe in the Second Amendment. Donald Trump is the very tyrant our founders feared. The tyrannical behavior he's engaged in right now is exactly why our founders insisted upon the Second Amendment. My fear of a tyrant abusing my basic human freedoms, my fear of a tyrant coming to grab my guns. And now we have that tyrant in the White House. We have that tyrant in the White House who doesn't care at all about due process. Thank God we have a Second Amendment. The Social Contract with Joe Walsh, every weekday on all of my social channels, 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Spread the word, spread the gospel. Be brave.
DOJ provides no new information on Abrego Garcia, but says if he manages to return to the U.S., they'll detain him and remove him to a different country, not El Salvador, or seek to terminate his order of removal and send him back to El Salvador, which is the lawful process. Abrego Garcia's lawyers say there's no evidence that Trump administration has done anything to comply with the order to facilitate his return from El Salvador. They want depositions and interrogatories and documents. Zines, every day Abrego Garcia is in CIGOT is a day of further irreparable harm. If not this court, then who to engage in process? It's process that is in the roots of our Constitution. So we have to give process to both sides, but we're going to move. There will be no tolerance for gamesmanship or grandstanding. Zines says Nayib Bukake, the president of El Salvador's comments in the Oval Office were not a non-responsive answer to her questions. If that were in a court of law, it would have real infirmities. In a trial, in a court of law, it is not a direct response, nor is the quip about smuggling someone into the United States. If the government were facilitating his return, there would be no smuggling, she notes. It says to buckle up for 2 weeks of intensive discovery. We're going to do this by the federal rules of civil procedure, so no press release is going to move the court the same way that sworn under oath testimony from persons with knowledge. If you have objections, you're going to have to get to make them consistent with the rules. Well, good luck. We'll see what happens. What is this? President Trump learns how to say MAGA in Spanish.
Mr. President, I'd like to teach you how to say let's make America great again in Spanish. So, vamos a hacer América grande otra vez.
America grande otra vez.
Paste. The fuck is this Hanania tweet about?
Up here up the Corona rooftop. Who do we got here? What's your name?
My name's Lauren.
Lawrence, all right.
And I'm Kayla.
Kayla, and you guys hang out at the rooftop lounge often?
Once a year I come out to visit.
Okay, well we timed it pretty well. All right, good. How are you guys feeling about rooting for the Braves today?
Oof, I don't know. I'm hoping for the best.
What about you? Are you a Braves fan now?
Not quite.
Not quite. All right, I'm gonna go to work up here, guys. Good luck the rest of the way.
Okay, Wiley. You got 4 innings to get the numbers.
I'm on it. I'm on it.
Get us some more Braves fans.
All right, so they want me to get your number.
They want you to get my
number. I'm dead serious. They're saying in my ear right now. She doesn't believe me because she thinks you guys are not. I'm making this up. Even if you guys weren't, I might use that in the future. That's actually a pretty good move.
This is unbelievable.
So the best part of this right now is that Wiley could totally be faking it. This might be the new move. Just walk around with a FanDuel microphone and an earpiece in and convince fans that they're actually on TV.
I should have thought of this years ago.
Absolutely epic.
I am speechless.
I got the number. We're good.
To get the number.
Where is my goddamn Biden?
No one has ever described me as openly heterosexual. No one has ever said openly heterosexual podcaster.
Hi, everyone. This is Pivot from New York Magazine and the Vox Media Podcast Network. I'm Kara Swisher.
And I'm Scott Galloway.
Where are you, Scott? You're somewhere strange with the wallpaper situation going on.
I am at the Colony Hotel in Palm Beach, where I just returned from the Department of Motor Vehicles at Palm Beach Gardens, where my son is now a licensed driver.
How exciting.
Aww.
That's great. I thought you were at Mar-a-Lago or something like that.
No, I ran into my friend Mehmet Oz yesterday, and he came over and he introduced me to RFK Jr. They're hanging out.
Oh, no.
And he gave me the cold shoulder. I think it's because I was having on my pod. I don't know. He was definitely like cold to me.
Who? RFK?
RFK, no, Mehmet and I are friends. RFK, yeah, was noticeceably cold to me. He's very handsome, though.
Because he's a crank. Like, do you see the latest? I don't even want to go into it.
4 months until autism is solved.
Not just that, all his stuff. He's taking information off. He's saying vaccines aren't necessarily a good thing. He's such a fucking disaster. These people are setting themselves up for a lot of pain years from now. It's just that the murders he is committing right now, as far as I'm concerned.
In addition to the additional death, disease, and disability across our populace, it's made traffic much worse for me. That's what I'm really upset about.
All right.
The traffic is awful down here. But anyways, I'm at the Colony Hotel, which I affectionately call, I think there's a whole cadre or cohort of what I call 64 hotels and service establishments, and that is because of the unprecedented prosperity that we've started to believe is the normal operating system in America, and a series of fiscal and monetary policies that literally, and tax policies, cram all this prosperity in the top 1%, and the fact there's a lag time. You can't build a 4 or 5 star hotel in a year. It takes 10 years. These places are over capacity, and so I describe them as 64s, and that is 6-star prices with 4-star service.
No. Okay.
And these places are so expensive, and I don't mind paying a lot of money if you get great service. And you do get great service at the Beverly Hills Hotel or, I don't know, at the Langham in London. I mean, there's just a ton of great hotels with great service. This is not one of them. This is not one of them.
All right, Colony Hotel with RFK there. That's all I need to know. I'm not going there.
RFK's not here. I don't want to spirit. It's a beautiful hotel in Palm Beach. By the way, it's 74 and sunny. God, it's so nice here.
Good for you. It's very nice here in Washington too. Anyway, we've got a lot to get to today. There's also a lot of tech stuff going on, including Meta's big antitrust trial, and of course, women in space. We'll get to that. But first, let's get into tariffs.
They're going to be Katy Perry haters.
Trump now says nobody is getting off the hook on tariffs, despite granting exemptions for smartphones, computers, and other electronics late Friday, which is a lie apparently. Trump posted on Truth Social on Sunday that products are just moving to a different tariff bucket. He also says that semiconductor tariffs are coming, but tariff exemptions, or whatever Trump wants to call them, are good news for Apple, Nvidia, and Dell, at least for the time being. Of course, Scott predicted Apple's reprieve on our Friday episode. Let's listen.
You want to enrage a cult? Take iPhones for $3,500, and then you're going to see the largest and most valuable company in history, an American company, lose the value of the German GDP over the course of a year. You're going to push back people's retirements. Apple's going to have to withdraw all sorts of growth plans, and you want to piss off every millennial and Gen X in the world. Take our iPhones for $3,500. Apple is not going to have any tariffs here.
So in the interim, for that, you were absolutely correct. Very good. But what was...
I was not correct, right?
Yes, I know. So what is the deal? Because Lutnick started, everyone thought Lutnick was off script, but then Trump underscored it and added more confusion to something that was already confusing and seems very oligarchic and sudden and shifting. Apple was trying very hard to deal with this. They're airlifting 600 tons of iPhones from India last week to reportedly beat the tariffs. This flip-flopping is really bad. Carolyn Levitt, of course, it goes against what they were saying. We're going to make things in the U.S. Carolyn Levitt, Tracy Flick said over the weekend that Trump is still committed to seeing more products and components made in the U.S. She noted Trump's direction. Tech companies are hustling to onshore their manufacturing in the United States as soon as possible. Carolyn, sit down, you 27-year-old ignoramus. But what do you think about this flippity flop?
Brand U.S. has become toxic uncertainty. There's several organizations, including Pew and Ipsos, that track an uncertainty index. And that index has reached its highest level since the 80s. The level of uncertainty in the U.S. right now is greater than COVID. Think about that. And by the way, I'm going to give you some anecdotes. I'm not going to name the people because they didn't want to be named. But what I would tell our listeners is that unlike the Trump administration, my anecdotes are true. I'm not lying. Mm-hmm. Over the weekend, I talked to several CEOs. One is the CEO of a huge catalog and retail company that does a lot of housewares. This person he thinks about $60 million in outdoor furniture waiting to hit the stores for summer that are on ships en route from China. All of a sudden, he has to figure out a way to get to the port of Long Beach when they arrive and write a check for $85 million that he wasn't expecting to write.
Wait, hold on. I just don't know. I thought that if a ship is like on the water or whatever, I thought that new tariff rates don't generally apply to those. No? Or am I incorrect there? That would suck if that was the case.
And he has to call his CFO. And this is a publicly traded multi-billion-dollar company. He's like, I can't just find $85 million.
Now, the 85 is for what? To pay for the things now? Or what is the 85 for?
That's the correct question, because the way tariffs work is the importer, the catalog, the retailer company taking delivery of outdoor furniture from China. If these products, quote unquote, cost $60 million, you have to, with 145% tariff, the person receiving the items, the retailer in the U.S., has to pay $85 million to the U.S. government in the form of a tariff payment. So this individual has to come up with $85 million to get the shit off the boat. In addition,
Unless they're given a reprieve.
But he can't just let shit sit on a boat. And right now, he has to plan for what the government is saying. In addition, he's got to find hundreds, if not thousands of people to go down to the port. And when the stuff comes off the boat, retag and reprice everything, because now the majority of retailers that order their stuff out of China have it tagged and priced and attached to the actual physical item in China.
And wrapped, right? And whatever, if there happen to be clothing or something like that.
Whatever it is. And so in addition, he's like, okay, so I have stopped all shipments from China. I've told them stop producing, which is going to take my inventory levels way down. And the only way I'm going to get anywhere back to even is if I raise prices, which I'm going to have to do. In addition to more expensive prices, i.e. inflation, my earnings call is going to be a shit show when I have to explain that, oh yeah, I wasn't expecting to pay an $85 million unexpected, straight from the bottom line payment for tariffs that didn't exist 7 days before.
Right.
And he has to go into his office and the CFO goes, all right, if we've got to go borrow $85 million against the line, we can do it. But if every retailer is hitting their line, the interest costs are going to go up. And this is what played out last week and why this guy blinked yet again. Mm-hmm. The president has access to more information than any individual in history. Between our security apparatus, the brightest people in the world, a ton of data that's digested, distilled for him. He is the helm of the bobsled. He technically has more insight into what is going on in the world than any.
This is why I always criticize Trump. I mean, everybody criticizes Trump all the time. But like, when we talk about Trump and him asking questions, they're like, oh, does anybody know what's going on here? I watched the news today to figure out this. And it's like, bro, you have access to more information than literally anybody in the world. Why are you asking us? Why are you watching the news? You literally can make the news. Like, what? Where is a, oh, here we go.
Disabled to present our Beacon of Hope Award to our keynote speaker and the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden. As soon as he was elected, President Biden quickly and decisively led our country out of the pandemic and into the strongest economic recovery of any country in the developed world, creating 16 million jobs in just 4 years, more than any other president in American history. With the bipartisan infrastructure law, President Biden quickly put millions of people to work, rebuilding our bridges and tunnels, ports and airports. He made wages go up, not just for the super wealthy, but for Americans all across every earning quintile of the economy. He brought manufacturing jobs back to the United States with the CHIPS Act. He made the biggest investments ever to combat climate change. And President Biden took on big pharma and won, reducing prescription drug costs for tens of millions of Americans. In fact, President Biden built such a strong economy that it has taken a great act of economic self-sabotage to hurt it. But all of
Wait,
you
was that a
here,
joke I didn't get? Pronouncing
all
the
of
T
you that
later?
are counselors, all of you that are lawyers and representatives know better than most that on a deeper level, whether it was as a lawyer or as a senator or as president of the United States, Joe Biden has always fought for the dignity of every person. Perhaps that's why Social Security has always been at the forefront of Joe Biden's mind, and why his defense of Social Security has always come from the bottom of his Irish-American heart. The dignity of every person.
Irish.
The dignity of work. The dignity of every child's home. The dignity of a compassionate and caring people who would freely choose to heal the sick, to feed the hungry, to care for widows and orphans, for those in the dawn of life and those in the dusk of life. Every soul. For 90 years, without ever missing a monthly benefit payment, this has been the mission of the Social Security Administration of the United States and of America. And yet, when the president asked me to lead the agency, it was not because things were going well. In fact, customer service was in a sharp decline. Wait times were going up for every line of service in this, our nation's largest insurance company, and they were going in the wrong direction fast. You see, over the prior 7 years, Congress had reduced staffing at the agency to a 50-year low, even as baby boomers of my generation swelled the ranks to a new all-time high every day. But thanks to President Biden's leadership and support, the hardworking men and women of Social Security in just 1 year turned around almost every single service metric in delivering for the American people, and they got the agency moving in a much better direction. That's how President Biden, when he left office, left the agency, heading in a better direction. But now so many of those gains have been wiped out. Right. And in just 45 days, Trump and Musk have gutted the Social Security Administration with a chainsaw. The largest exodus of staff the agency has ever suffered. And make no mistake about it, it's the American people who are feeling the pain. They'll feel the pain in the additional wait times. They'll feel the pain from being crammed into crowded wait rooms. They'll feel the pain from their field office being gutted and reduced by 25 or 50%. But I tell you, they may feel the pain, but they will not believe the big lies. And we've heard them again. We're hearing them right now. The big lie that there's a massive zombie apocalypse of dead people. Some of them, not only 150 years old, they're 300 years old. Not true. It's a big lie. And the reason the people won't believe it is because it's not true. The other big lie, illegal immigrants. They're sucking Social Security dry. When the truth is, illegal immigrants are prohibited by law from receiving any Social Security benefits, but they contribute $25 billion to everybody else in America that depends on Social Security. The American people aren't buying it because it's not true. They will also...
I think you need to explain that because most people don't understand how that works.
To tell you the big lie that Social Security is rife with fraud, run over the cup runneth over with fraud after fraud after fraud. The American people aren't buying it. And they're not buying it because it's not true. Every inspector general for the last 30 years has concluded that the level of fraud at Social Security is actually less than 0.5%. So, as our democracy awakens to this massive breaking and entering in progress and all its attendant big lies, let no one forget that for 90 years Social Security has always worked, that for 90 years Social Security has never missed a payment, that for most of those 90 years, Social Security was allowed to have adequate staffing to serve its customers. And finally, remember this. Even when their staffing was reduced to a 50-year low, one president got it turned around and moving in a better direction. One president, in his final days in office, in fact, even signed the Social Security Fairness Act into law, the biggest expansion and strengthening of benefits in 20 years. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, that person was our our keynote speaker, was the 46th President of the United States. So please welcome the strongest defender of Social Security the American people have ever had, President Joe Biden.
Oh, there he is. Oh, it's Joe. Joe, we miss you. Come back, please, God.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So good to be here with all of you. I mean that. First thing I do is
can we turn the music down? Hello?
who deserve help and paid for most of it. You know, my great friend, he is a great friend, Governor O'Malley. He, my dad, the Biden family started off in Baltimore. They don't say Baltimore, it's Baltimore. In Baltimore. And, but we've been friends for a long time. And I just want to say at the outset, if you ever want anybody on your team, whether it's an athletic team, whether you're in a battle, whether it's a political team, or there's a team just trying to help, you want O'Malley. The guy has guts. No, I mean this sincerely. He not only has political courage, has physical courage. He's across the board. If ever want anybody standing next to me, I want O'Malley there with me. And I mean that sincerely. It really matters.
Thanks, Phil.
You know, I always kid Maryland because Delaware, the second smallest state, we share the eastern shore of Maryland with Maryland. But we're close friends.
True.
Folks,
Whatever he just said, true.
It's no surprise that he did a hell of a job when I asked him to be commissioner of the Social Security. And the reason I did that is not an ordinary transition for a governor. But I knew, I mean this is from the bottom of my heart, I knew we needed someone with some guts, some toughness, who'd fight for every single penny that it needed, that would try to restore the integrity of the system. And to everyone here today, I want to thank you, all of you, very much for this award. It means a great deal to me coming from you. And I mean that sincerely. It means a great deal. You're in the front lines every single day. You're helping, you're advocating for your fellow Americans, Americans with disability. It's a big deal. We talk about what happened in the physical side of it if we didn't have Social Security. Think of what the psychic calm gives so many people who just don't know where to go, don't know how to traverse what needs to be done, or alone. Last fall, on the White House lawn, we celebrate the anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. As a United States Senator 400 years ago, I was looking back on it. God almighty, I've been doing this 50 years. It's hell turning 40 years old, anyway. But back in the year 1990, I was the co-sponsor of the Americans with Disabilities Act as a United States Senator. In my view,
stop distracting him.
and I suspect many of you, it was one of the most consequential civil rights laws in American history. That's what got me involved in politics in the first place. Delaware, like Maryland, was one of those states, was a slave state. We had all the vestiges of what was going on back in the day. We were one of those states that still, I remember moving from Scranton, Pennsylvania down to Wilmington, Delaware, and Cole died. My dad moved back to where we could get a job. I remember I pulled into, my mom would drive us on the Philadelphia Pike connecting Wilmington and Philadelphia. And we lived in an apartment complex. And she'd drive us it was only about a half a mile to Holy Rosary School in Claymont. But it was so dangerous, she wouldn't let us walk up because of access road. And I remember pulling into the parking lot. And I had never seen hardly any black people in Scranton at the time and I was only going in 4th grade. And I remember seeing the kids going by.
It's going somewhere good with us, don't worry.
Colored kids on a bus going by. They never turned right to go to Claymont High School. I wondered why. Asked my mom, why? So in Delaware, they're not allowed to go to school, in public school, with white kids, honey. That sparked my sense of outrage as a kid, just like it does. I mean, and these young kids right here can tell you things affect them when they learn about something that's really just unfair and unjust. You know, my dad was an honorable man. And my dad used to have an expression. He said, Joey, your job's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay, and mean it. Well, that's what you're all about. That's what the legislation's about. It's about dignity. Simple dignity. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, regardless of their standing, regardless of their economic situation, regardless of who they are. Making sure that more than 60 million Americans who are living with disabilities are treated with dignity is who we are as Americans. That's what it's about.
True.
I mean it. Dignity at work, at school, in their communities, in every corner of American life. Laws like the ADA need advocates like you. You're the ones that keep it going, God love you. You fight like hell every single day to make sure the
You
law
tell
is
him, Joe.
respected.
Hell yeah.
And your clients' rights are protected. So from the bottom of my heart, I mean this. I give you my word as a Biden. From the bottom of my heart, I say thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for your commitment to the dignity of all Americans. Because that's what ultimately this is about. Folks, today I want to talk to you about an issue that's front and center right now for millions of Americans.
What the Who's trolling with the audio here, guys?
You know, some of you may know the Democrats have declared today the Save Social Security National Action Day. National Day of Action, I should say.
Don't appreciate
We
it.
know just how much Social Security matters to people's lives. Everyone in this room fights for people with disabilities who rely on Social Security to survive. To survive. Not just the physical side, it's the mental side. It's the mental side. You make sure folks get the benefits they earn after a lifetime of hard work. The work they do is more than just a profession, what you do. It's a calling. It's not just a profession. And Social Security is more than a government program. It's a sacred promise. We made it a sacred promise. 73 million Americans receive Social Security. From their first paycheck for their entire life, they pay into Social Security. And in return, they count on Social Security to be for them when they're going to need it.
You tell them, Joe.
Folks must never, ever betray that trust or turn our backs on that obligation. That's why during my presidency, we protected Social Security and made it stronger. Martin, the governor can tell you. We came into office, Social Security Administration had its lowest staffing, she referenced it, lowest staffing levels in 50 years. And demand is going through the roof because of my generation and the baby boom generation reaching the retirement age. So the demands on Social Security increased significantly. Our administration secured nearly $2 billion to reduce the backlogs and improve customer service. We slashed wait times for folks in need. We're calling the 1-800 number. We got it down to under 13 minutes. It used to be 3 times that long when we took office. We made it easier for people to get help with their claims online. We reduced how long it takes to review a case. We fixed the appeal system to make it uniform in all 50 states, which made a difference. We strengthened the anti-fraud measures to protect people's identities and to make sure benefits are going to people who actually they belong to. By the way, those 300-year-old folk getting that Social Security, I want to meet them because I like to figure out how they live that. Hell of a thing, man. I'm looking for longevity because it's hell when you turn 40 years old. But as a result, by the time we left office, we had improved every single line of customer service, from applying for disability to filing an appeal to reporting fraud. It all became more efficient and more effective. And I'll bet it made your jobs easier, too, in the process. Now, these achievements may not sound so glamorous to most people, but you know, they're absolutely essential. In my view, one of the most important jobs of any elected official is to make sure the government works for the people, works for all people. It's understandable. They can understand what it is. And then we keep our promises to the people, to all the people. That's exactly what we did, thanks to all of you. I also signed into law the Social Security Fairness Act. That act eliminated 2 unfair rules so public employees wouldn't get shortchanged. The government pension offset and the windfall elimination provision can never come in ever again. But as a result, more than 2 million people are now finally receiving the full benefits they earned. And remember, we also faced a constant threat by some members, Republican members of the Congress, to cut and gut Social Security, period. Cut and gut it, period. They wanted to let Social Security expire every 5 years. That was the proposal. Let it expire every 5 years. unless reauthorized by the Congress. Who in the hell do they think they are? Every 5 years, and then wait around and be... well.
True.
I will not go further or get in trouble, but look, folks. You can imagine the chaos it would have charged. Every 5 years, Congress is going to step up. Can you imagine this Congress stepping up? They threatened to raise the retirement age as well. Now, that might not be a hardship for someone working in a comfortable job. But if you're on your feet all day, you're doing manual labor all day, you're working with a disability, it's a very different matter. And then they even tried to force cuts on Social Security during the negotiation of the debt ceiling.
Unbelievable.
These are wonderful guys. Last time this guy had the job, he raised the debt ceiling because of an enormous and profligate tax cut to the super wealthy. And then he said, look, then they started talking to his colleagues. Well, maybe we can do something about Social Security, but we got to do something about the debt ceiling. How are we going to we can find the money in Social Security? Unless we do what they wanted. They wanted to cut Social Security. Not on my watch. We refused to go along with any of that.
And he's still watching, guys. Don't worry. He's still watching.
Look, Americans have always been able to count on these benefits. And let me pause a second here and say this. We talk about the physical needs that Social Security provides for people, particularly hardworking people, people retired, people on the edge.
What about the psychic needs?
But the psychological impact.
Hell yeah. Let's go.
Profound. Profound. You're a man or a woman, you're 70s, 80 years old, you're not in good shape, you have a disability, and you hear the check may not come. How do you sleep at night? How do you sleep at night? We lived up in Wilmington in a 3-bedroom split-level home in a new development, 40 homes, with 4 kids and a grandpa living with us. And I remember our headboard was near my dad's and mom's room.
Oh, yeah.
And you could tell when Dad was restless. I remember asking one night my mom, what's the matter with Dad? The next morning, she just found out that
he's getting...
that we're not going to provide insurance anymore where he works. Well, imagine if you're somebody who's been struggling your whole life. You're literally counting on Social Security to buy your food, just to get by. And you hear the threats, what may happen. Many of these beneficiaries, that's their only income. If they were cut or taken away, it'd be devastating for millions of people. And the psychological pressure we put people under.
God damn, guys.
It's absolutely devastating. That's why we work so damn hard to make Social Security Administration stronger than it's been in years. And that's why I asked the governor to take over, by the way. But look what's happened now. Fewer than 100 days, this new administration has made done so much damage and so much destruction. It's kind of breathtaking it could happen that soon. They've taken a hatchet to the Social Security Administration, pushing an additional 7,000 employees, 7,000 out the door in that time.
That's crazy, guys.
Including the most seasoned career officials.
Not good.
Now they're getting ready to push thousands more out the door. Already we can see the effects. For example, thousands of people use the Social Security website every single day to check on their benefits and submit their claims. But now, the technology division of the Social Security Administration has been cut in half. And so the website's crashing. People can't sign on to their accounts. What do you think it does to that woman living alone At 74 years checking, just not able to even find out whether she can't even find out what that disability claim is she had. She can't file a new disability claim. And it's a lot of these people being told incorrectly that their benefits have ended. Folks, imagine the panic that causes if you're a retiree living alone with only Social Security to depend upon. So now people are overwhelming the phone lines. They're showing up at the local Social Security office, tearful and frantic, and told, do you have an appointment? In that tone, by the way. I can give you a personal example if I'm not going to the. To cap it all off, serious people are now generally concerned for the first time in history, for the first and only time in history, that Social Security benefits may be delayed or interrupted. Folks, let's put this in perspective. In the 90 years since Franklin Roosevelt created the Social Security system,
1 sec.
people have always gotten their Social Security checks. They've gotten them during wartime, during recessions, during a pandemic, no matter what, they got them. But now, for the first time ever, that might change. It would be calamity for millions of families, millions of people. But the current Secretary of Commerce doesn't seem to get it. Or based on his comments, he doesn't seem to even care. Many of you saw what he said the other day. And by the way, he's a billionaire. God love him, as my mother would say. Paying 8.5% in taxes. Anyway. Billionaires don't know what he's paying. But when he talked about the possibility of Social Security checks not going out this month, he shrugged it off. Here's what he said. He said his 94-year-old mother-in-law wouldn't complain, wouldn't bother her. She's probably a lovely woman. No kidding. Her son-in-law is a billionaire. What about that 94-year-old mother living all by herself? Doesn't have a billionaire in the family. Or all the retirees who depend on that monthly check to feed themselves.
94, we're getting older and older.
Disabilities with no other source. What about all those people? That's who you fight for. So they should desperately need you. Folks, it's not just the Secretary of Commerce. We heard how others, empowered and emboldened by this administration, talk about Social Security. One of them called it a Ponzi scheme. A Ponzi scheme? What the hell are they talking about? People earn these benefits. They paid into that benefit. They rely on that benefit. And no one should take it away. You know, Franklin Roosevelt had a different view. He was president coming out of the Great Depression. He and all his colleagues saw great suffering, so much poverty. He also took steps to raise standard of living for ordinary Americans, including creating Social Security. He himself was from a very wealthy family. He didn't need Social Security.
Yeah, you tell him, Joe.
But understood how much it would mean to millions of Americans. He knew it would make America stronger in the process. And it has. It makes our economy stronger. It makes the community stronger. It makes families stronger. It gives peace of mind. That's why the vast majority of Americans, including many wealthy Americans, still support, thank God, Social Security. And very wealthy billionaires still support Social Security. They may not rely on themselves, but they know. Social Security deserves to be protected for the good of the nation as a whole. You got to ask yourself, why is this happening? Why are these guys taking aim at Social Security now? Well, they're following that old line from tech startups.
Uh-oh.
The quote is, move fast, break things. Well, they're certainly breaking things. They're shooting first and aiming later. As a result is a lot of needless pain and sleepless nights. My friend Governor O'Malley knows what they're really up to. He says, and I love his quote, they want to wreck it so they can rob it. They want to wreck it so they can rob it. And why do they want to rob it? In order to deliver huge tax cuts to billionaires and big corporations and keep it going. They want to make permanent the 2017 tax cuts, which overwhelmingly benefited the wealthiest Americans and the biggest corporations. That's going to cost $5 trillion. Where are they going to get $5 trillion to pay for it? Other than continue to run the deficit up. Well, what do they always do? By running up the national debt, number one, and then by taking the money from someplace else. What are the two big pots of money out there in raw numbers?
Social Security and Medicare.
Social Security and Medicaid. Well, from other programs that people rely on and have paid into. Republicans, these guys are willing to hurt the middle class and the working class in order to deliver significant greater wealth to the already very wealthy. Who in the hell do they think they are? I really think just basic decency. Who do they think they are? I think anybody should go out. They can make $1 billion a year. They can, fine. Pay your fair share. You know what the average, we have 1,000 billionaires in America. You know the average federal tax they pay? 8.2%. Anybody want to trade that number? What you're paying? Folks, look. Let me close. I'm sorry to go on so long, but it's just, anyway. I grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania as a kid, and then Claymont, Delaware. Middle-class towns, working-class towns. Places where people worked hard all their lives with the promise that they'd be able to retire someday with a little bit of dignity. Because they've been paying in a thing called Social Security since the very paycheck they ever earned. These people get knocked down every day, learn to get up. My dad's one expression, you get knocked down, just get up. Get up. They get up every day. The last thing they need from their government is deliberate cruelty. It's about people and neighbors across the country who look out for each other. You don't see empathy. They don't see it as a sign of weakness. They see empathy as a decent instinct. They don't see cruelty as a sign of strength. Social Security is about more than retirement accounts. It's about honoring a fundamental trust between government and people. It's about peace of mind for those who work their whole lives so they can rest assured they'll have a chance to get back some of what they earned and what they deserve. But more than anything else, I mean this sincerely.
Okay.
And as my friend says, maybe it's the Irish of it in me, but it's about who we are as Americans. Who are we? What makes us distinct from the rest of the world? It comes down to basic, in my view, fundamental American values. Nobody's king. Nobody's the boss. Everybody has a shot. All people asking for is a shot. Honesty, decency, where hard work is rewarded. Have some faith in each other. Fairness, simple fairness. We can't go on like this as a divided nation, as divided as we are. Like I said, I've been doing this a long time. It's never been this divided. Granted, it's roughly 30%, but it's a 30% that has no heart. What we see in America.
Oh,
So
God.
we believe in fairness.
Hold on. Wait for him to finish.
And that's the America we can never forget or walk away from. Folks, I mean this. I know it sounds trite, but I have to remember who we are. We're the United States of America. The United States of America. The most unique country in the history of the world, and that's not hyperbole. Every other nation was founded because of religion, geography, ethnicity. We're the only nation in the world founded on an ocean. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, endowed by their Creator. That's the one thing united us, an idea. Every other nation was because of a purpose. It's an idea. And how can we fulfill the outcome, the meaning of that idea? We walk away from just basic fundamental decency. Folks, sorry to go on so long, but I feel deeply about this. You know, you heard me say it before and I'll say it again. There's nothing beyond the capacity of America to do when we do it together. Let's do it together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for this wonderful award. Thank you. My sister. Anyway, thank you all very much.
Remember when we used to talk about working together on things and not just endlessly shitting on our political opposition?
Individual. And I'm sure 2 pieces of data were presented to him in fairly stark terms. Consumer confidence is plummeting. Uncertainty is skyrocketing, which all adds up to a decline in spending and hiring, and insecurity, which is taking the economy down. Now, traditionally, when an economy goes down, people don't want to borrow money. People don't want to invest, so interest rates come down. And that makes people more confident. It's sort of a self-healing mechanism. In this instance, we have a reduction in consumer spending, the economy slowing down. But the 10-year spiked 50 points. So you have everything getting more expensive as the economy slows down. That's called stagflation, which is a bridge to a depression. The 10-year went up 50 bips in 5 days. And let's bring that down to a number.
Okay. You had something to say. Wait, did I? Oh. An hour ago, a video said on Tuesday that it will take a quarterly charge of about $5.5 billion tied to exporting H2O graphics processing units to China and other destinations. And remember, after hours is lower volume, so it doesn't necessarily reflect what it's going to look like when it opens, but the after hours stock slid over 5 points. Rip. It's H20, my bad.
Okay. All right.
We have a $34 trillion deficit, meaning every basis point increase.
AMD was hit even harder. Oh, their after hours slid almost 7 points, up to 6 points.
Increase in the cost of the 10-year. If it goes from 4% to 4.1%, it's another $3.5 billion in interest payments we have to make on our national debt. I'm not even talking about the incremental cost of consumers of their student loans, their mortgages, and their credit cards. I'm just talking about the interest on the debt we have to pay. So when it spikes 50 basis points, right, on $3.5 billion per basis point in incremental interest expense, all of a sudden, in a few days, America has to come up with another $175 billion in interest payments to foreign creditors. Our entire Veterans Affairs budget is $300 billion. So they have figured out a way to reduce the economy, send the economy into what looks like a low-grade coma, while interest rates are going up. This is the worst
and they're
of
not
all
getting,
worlds.
and the $85 million this guy has to pay is going to the government, but it's now going to be sucked up in interest rate payments. It's just like, so we're going to lose so much money every which way you lose. So there's how companies proceed is impossible at this point. What do you do? What do you just stop payments? That's what you stop doing, and then you lay people off, and then you hunker down until this lunatic is either he loses at the midterm and he gets investigated out the yin yang, which he should be, honestly, or and then it's rendered impossible for him to do anything. That's it. His lawlessness continues. He's defying the Supreme Court on immigration. And he's defying everybody on every single thing. And also, by the way, he doesn't weigh 224 pounds. He weighs like at least 250 pounds. Anyway, that was just his thing. Let's talk China then, because this is an opportunity, as we've talked about with President Xi. He currently is visiting Vietnam and other countries in Southeast Asia, presenting China as a reliable ally and trading partner. China also suspended exports on a wide range of critical minerals and magnets. China is holding steady here, and they are willing to endure pain, but they're also doing the correct thing, which is to visit partners and show themselves to be reliable partners. What will Trump do next? Because I see him more in this press conference in the Oval Office. He's defying the Supreme Court. He's defying the Fed. He's defying anyone he can defy. And when he makes a good decision, he defies his good decisions. So what do companies do, and how do you look at China's role here? Because I think they're benefiting enormously from his idiocy. I don't know what else to call it. Stupidity.
So I never miss a chance to boast. The CEO of one of the most iconic German automobile manufacturers reached out and said, we'd love to host you and come have you speak to the management team of the board. And I said, and I was trying to arrange dates. And then he called me and he said, can I ask you something? I said, of course. He goes, what would you do if you were us, given what's going on in the U.S.? And Kara, as a guy who is always willing to run other people's lives and tell them what they should do, I'm like, I have no fucking idea. I have no idea. What to do here other than, and I hate to say this because I love America, other than figure out a series of partners that are more reliable. And I said, we're doing that. And going to that notion around, let's talk about China now. China, since COVID, or since 2019, has reduced its percentage of its total exports to the U.S. from 24 to 17%. We have reduced ours by 4%. So we're both diversifying away from each other. They have diversified at nearly double the clip we have. The basic premise is that we can hurt them more than they can hurt us, so they will cry uncle. So let's assume.
Use that talking point more often. If people say Trump did something good, he defies that good thing he did every time. I mean, that's baked into the other argument of like tariffs are good, Okay, why? Because they bring back manufacturing. Okay, but then he gets rid of the tariffs. Well, I thought the tariffs were good. No. It's good that he got rid of them. They were just a negotiating tactic. Okay. But then when he, like, it's this back and forth. It's that same argument, basically.
We could hurt them more than they could hurt us. That is a pretty shaky thesis because while the administration wants you to believe that we're the only customer at the country club and they have to be nice to us, the number one trading partner with China is the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, at $1 trillion. Who's number two? The EU at $900 billion. We're number three. So yeah, we have a lot of power. But if they wanted to, and you want to talk about restraint, if they wanted to go into the market and take the 10-year from 450 to 550 and create inflation while the economy is going down, they could do that. But what they realize is that if they really hurt and kneecap their third biggest customer, it would be bad for them as well. They are not stupid. In addition, let's discount all of that. And let's take the administration at its word that Howard Lutnick, that we're the biggest consumer and they would be fucked without us. China has its own troubles. Here's the issue, or the piece of calculus they are missing. When Americans when they're watching the Logan Paul-Mike Tyson fight, and it starts, the bandwidth slows down, they go fucking ape shit, and they call their cable company.
I just did that today.
When you talk about women are born with a much higher tolerance for pain because they have to endure childbirth. Men have much lower tolerance of pain. We're the man in this relationship. China starves tens of millions of people when they think it's good long-term for the country.
I was going to say that too, bro. We have like the Great Leap Forward population. That's the population that you're asking us to outlast. Can we take a second and just kind of evaluate what exactly that's going to look like? You've got people who are happy to work in sweatshops versus Americans who think that having to Uber once in their life is the equivalent of 1700s chattel slavery, okay? I don't know if I'm feeling too confident about our ability to withstand Chinese perseverance here.
Country. Do you realize the pain threshold of America relative to China? Zero. And we think we're going to strong-arm them into doing a decision they don't want to do?
It's nuts. This is just absolutely nuts. Bo and Yang did a very funny thing on SNL, this idea. They are made for pain, and we are not made for pain.
But wait, I'm just wondering, which side is more willing to endure hardship for the glory of their nation? The one that's been around for thousands of years, or the one that's sending Katy Perry to space?
Look at us in the 70s when we had a much higher tolerance for pain, when we didn't have Netflix and shows on demand and couldn't get a pack of gum delivered to us within 15 minutes. We left Vietnam after we had decided we can't take anymore when we had lost 58,000 servicemen. At that point, in the Viet Cong and North Vietnam, they had lost 1 million people, and we cried uncle. Right. To think that, I mean, the calculus here is just so incredibly ignorant.
The performative defiance on everything. Like, there's not anywhere they're not losing and being performatively defiant and then dragging people who were not like this, like Marco Rubio, into this performative defiance. That's what I would call it. And it's like Saul, my son. This, I'm not going to, he does this thing where he does his arms. You ever, when you see a toddler, like, I'm not going to do anything. And that's what it feels like. I feel like I'm dealing with like a 3-year-old or something.
Interest point is that average interest rate on outstanding national debt 3%. Any 1% increase to that, which is pretty much where yields are at now, is a $30 billion hit to the annual deficit. I mean, are we necessarily refinancing that much all the time? Wouldn't we have to look up to like how much is up for refinancing? I don't even know how that works or how much is set to expire or anything like that.
Something like that.
First off, it's corruption all over the place because, okay, you give me $1 million, you're the cult of iOS. Just kidding, the tariffs are way back there now. 98% of the companies in America who are dependent upon exports for their well-being are small and medium-sized business. Another CEO I spoke to this weekend, a friend of mine from my fraternity at college, he has a specialty products company. You know when you go to a conference and all the cups, the fleeces, the banners, the signage?
I have a lot. I'm wearing one right now.
There you go, okay? That's a big business. He has a family-run business that he's worked at for 30 years since we got out of college. He's built probably a $10 or $12 million business, 130 employees, has put 3 kids through college, lived a really nice life, right? Slowly but surely over the last 30 years, everything's gone to China. About 80% of his products are produced out of China. He also has to go down to the port and sign a check for a couple $1 million, which he doesn't have to get the shit off the boat. He's told China to stop shipping everything, and he doesn't have time to figure out new routing relationships. He's basically said, Scott, this is COVID times 10. I'm not going to get any relief. I don't know.
What do you think will happen when the next admin comes into office and decides that we aren't going to pay El Salvador to house those prisoners anymore? What do you think will happen next? I mean, are these continual payments we're making, or? I don't know. That's just an incredibly fucked situation in my mind. But Americans just don't care about brown people or foreigners. So I don't know. I don't even know where the average American's opinion is on this deportation thing. But also, it's not even so much. Actually, I'm shitting on America. It's not even so much that too. It's also the fact that there's just been it's just been so much. And it's like, how do you? I'm sorry. What was the last earth-shattering thing the Trump admin did? Oh, another thing. Like, it's just so much to constantly be aware of as well, that I don't necessarily blame people for not keeping up on the latest worst thing in the universe that the Trump admin now just did.
When this is coming to an end, and literally my business has come to a halt.
Right.
At campuses, and I know this firsthand, some of the biggest organizations, companies, recruiters have said the following: we're putting a pause on interviews and hiring. And a pause sounds benign, but when you pause hiring for 3 months for new grads out of college, in 3 months when they resume, they don't double the pace. They basically reduce hiring for like 25 or 50% for that year. It's not as if they decide now we're going to go crazy with hiring when we start again. So you have a reduction in the number of jobs for kids coming out of college. You have stocks that are going to get the shit kicked out of them. You have small and medium-sized businesses that don't know what to do. You have earnings calls, which are going to be an absolute shit show. And you have the threat of stagflation. And all of this is the chickens coming to roost because countries don't go out of business because they're invaded. They go out of business because they go broke. And we have borrowed so much fucking money. We are so debt-laden that we no longer have that bullet to fire.
I mean, one of the things that's astonishing here is that we think we have choices, and that's the problem with this entire thing. Is we do not have the choices. This is not being an America is a bunch of losers. This is self-inflicted damage that we're doing to ourselves.
Definition
exactly.
of own goal.
Right? We should be running just 3 months ago. You were talking about how the U.S. is dominating everything. Right? When the transition was happening 3 or 4 months ago. Now we are just doing it to ourselves. And I think most people understand that. But we have to move on. But this is just what is a fucking disaster. Now, Apple stock and Nvidia stock is up today because they're hoping that these things stay in place, but they might not. And so you might see an impact. Lots of shares are down right now. Apple and Nvidia are up because they've gotten this break, but who knows what's coming because this is this idea that he wants to continue to hold over people's head that he could grab these anytime. Anyone who can't get in on this gravy train, you use the Vietnam thing. I used it yesterday on one of our socials. This is like if you're not on the helicopter out of Saigon, you are fucked. Like everyone else is fucked. We'll see what political implications that has, but we'll see where it goes. Anyway, Scott, let's go on a quick break. When we come back, the antitrust trial that Mark Zuckerberg tried so hard to shut down, and he looked so nice at the inauguration. We'll get to that. Scott, we're back. Apparently putting on a tie and kissing up to Trump didn't do the job. The FTC is facing off against Meta in a blockbuster antitrust trial getting underway this week. The case goes back to Trump's first term in 2020, if you can believe it, with the government alleging Meta violated competition laws by acquiring Instagram and WhatsApp. For its part, Meta says regulators should be supporting innovation and it also faces fierce competition from TikTok, Snap.
Like Trump isn't even rewarding the people that were being loyal to him. He's like the worst. He's not even a good dictator.
And other platforms. I find this to be a little bit of a weak trial. To be honest with you, I think there's others that are stronger, but the trial is expected to last about 7 to 8 weeks. Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg will be called to the stand, among others. This is the case that Mark Zuckerberg has been trying to stop. It's interesting that Trump has not intervened. Zuckerberg has visited the White House 3 times since Trump took office. Meta also donated $1 million to Trump's inaugural fund and settled a lawsuit with Trump for $25 million back in January, which they did nothing. It also just named former Trump advisor Dina Powell-McCormick to Meta's board. She's also the wife of Senator David McCormick from Pennsylvania. FTC head Andrew Ferguson has been vocal about reining in tech, but also said he'd obey lawful orders if Trump asked him to drop the suit. I think he would. He's been wearing the Trump. Have you seen the gold-headed Trump that people are wearing? I think it was him. Yeah, I think it was Ferguson that was wearing it. Anyway, Brendan Carr was wearing it. Excuse me, the head of the FCC. So he said he would follow what Trump says. And any thoughts on this? If Meta loses, the remedy could be divesting Instagram and WhatsApp. The judge who will decide the case for the remedy is James Boasberg, who's been clashing with Trump over deportations and many other issues. So talk about this case a little bit and what you think will happen here. It's going on, so it's not been stopped by any means.
Well, Zuck is the most disliked person in America under the age of 30. He's got a 2/3 unfavorable rating. He's even less.
It's kind of crazy.
He's even less popular than Musk. And think about when you're the most disliked person amongst a group of people who is literally ground zero for your product, and 2/3 of those people use your product, and yet you are the most disliked person.
Mm-hmm.
Zuckerberg, he followed Elon in that, Elon apparently wanted to be the most visible fucking tech guy in the universe, and then other, I think, social media people saw that, or not social media people, but just other tech people saw that. They're like, oh shit! I feel like Bezos was inspired a bit by Elon, and I think Zuck was inspired a bit by Elon. Like, oh wait, I want to be cool and hip, and everybody likes me. And then he hops on, but now Elon has toasted a lot of people's views of that, and Zuck was just behind on everything. I don't think anybody likes Zuckerberg anywhere.
In America, I'm hopeful. I had Jonathan Cantor on Prop G, and Jonathan said he was the former head of Antitrust at the DOJ?
Justice,
right? And I said, I'm really sad that you and Lena are gone. I just don't see anything happening. And he actually said, you underestimate some of the people that are still there. There's still some people there that are pretty committed and, quite frankly, sort of antitrust badasses that are going to make a very powerful argument. I've become so cynical, Kara. I know what I want to happen. I think that they're going to play slow ball. I mean, look at how strategic Zuckerberg is. He put Dana White on the board. He's put this Trumpite on the board. He's figured out the existential threat to my business isn't distribution, isn't innovation, it's political. And so I am absolutely muscling up with all sorts of contacts into the White House. And the reality is this White House can be bought. And not only can the White House be bought, so can the Democratic caucus with enough money. So I believe they have become masters at slowing these things down and letting them die a slow death. I hope I'm wrong. These companies have figured out a way to avoid all regulation. I don't see why this would be
I think they're
different.
surprised the trial is going forward. Let me just read from the opening statements by the two
Or when he said Democratic caucus, did he just mean our democracy? Maybe not like caucus. Sorry, I might have read that too literally.
Lawyers. This is Daniel Matheson, the FTC's lead litigator. For more than 100 years, American public policy has insisted firms must compete if they want to succeed. The reason we are here is Meta broke the deal. They decided the competition was too hard, to be easier to buy out their rivals than compete with them. This is a buyer-bearer argument. Now, Meta's lawyers, this is a guy named Mark Hansen from a big law firm, Kellogg Hansen. This case is a grab bag of FTC theories at war with fact and at war with law. The facts are going to prove the FTC's theories are all wrong. It is a difficult trial. I've talked to a lot of lawyers. The FTC would like it to divest these companies. Legal experts say it might be hard to win. I'll read directly from the New York Times. That's because the government must prove something unknowable, that Meta, formerly known as Facebook, wouldn't have achieved the same success without the acquisitions. It's also extremely rare to try to unwind mergers approved years before. So that's one of the difficult ones, even though this is somewhat of a bipartisan effort. Just for people to know, there's 3 going around to go to trial. The DOJ won its case against Google. A federal judge is hearing arguments about remedies and a potential breakup. And there's a separate trial with the DOJ for monopolizing ad technology by Google. That's still going on. Justice Department has also sued Apple, and the FTC has sued Amazon, accusing the companies of antitrust violations. Those trials are coming up later, just for people to get background. But if they do spin it off, it would be unprecedented.
Well, I mean, the baby bills were broken up. The aluminum, the sisters, the 7 sisters, whatever. It does happen. And generally speaking, when we look back in economic history, there's never been a breakup that hasn't turned out well for everybody. So it's one of the few things that kind of always works are breakups. The problem is, to your point, we should have a much higher bar for approving mergers because, quite frankly, the job of the government is to prevent a tragedy of the commons. And the easiest way to do that is preventive. And that is not let these companies be acquired to begin with. I mean, even there's been a lot of officials in the government say we screwed up letting Meta acquire Instagram.
True.
They probably should have never let Google acquire, what was it, DoubleClick and or YouTube. So
that was Google. Yeah, Google. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But so there probably needs, what this says is it is very difficult to unwind a merger and force a spin. What is easier is to block an acquisition. And I think the bar should be pretty low to block an acquisition for a company once it gets above a certain dominance in its own category. I think that's what the argument they make so effectively that resonates with the public is that capitalism means making more money and they should just be capitalists and the market do its thing. What they don't realize is that the concentration of industry has led to massively higher prices, whether it's chicken, whether it's pharma, whether it's healthcare.
Right. This is harder.
And think about the way I look at it is the hard part is some of these costs are non-economic, but for God's sakes, look at the rents and the increase in emotional prices that Meta has levied on every parent globally.
Ad businesses that have been destroyed because they've dominated and stuff like that. There's those. These are just harder to do. Just for people, just a little more. We're going to talk about it. Facebook bought Instagram in 2012 for $1 billion. I covered this. And then 2014, it paid $19 billion for WhatsApp. Both were crazy prices at the time, although Instagram certainly has yielded a lot. There is a paper trail for 2012 for $1 billion to do. Just for people, just a little more. We're going to talk about it. Facebook bought Instagram in 2012 for $1 billion. I covered this. And then 2014, it paid $19 billion for WhatsApp. Both were crazy prices at the time.
Did WhatsApp make its money back? I don't even know how you make money on WhatsApp. Do they have like stories and shit now? I feel like every fucking app has like some fucking story feature and social media feature. I don't use WhatsApp that much, though.
Although Instagram certainly has yielded a lot. There is a paper trail of emails between executives talking about the startups because they were threats. I wrote about that at the time. They were one of the lawyers mentioned the documents. Zuckerberg was so paranoid, and he talked about in emails neutralizing a potential competitor. And then he wrote to Sandberg. Zuckerberg wrote to Sandberg, Messenger isn't beating WhatsApp. Instagram was growing so much faster than us. We had to buy them for $1 billion because they're such bad product people at Facebook, and I cannot underscore this enough. They had to buy or bury. It's a very famous phrase in tech, buy or bury. And so that's what the government is alleging here.
I don't know if I'd say they were, I mean, she would know way more than me, but she also might just be a hater, which is fair. I don't know if I'd say they're necessarily bad product people so much as it's hard to compete with every single other tech company that could innovate in the entire world. So it's easier to just buy them out, right?
And also keeping it out of other competitors' hands is another one to build a moat around the monopoly. And so WhatsApp was that for them. So it should be really, really interesting, I think. We'll see what happens in this trial. But so far, the Trump administration is not doing pay or play here. They're just letting it go, which is, to me, interesting. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, he doesn't like these guys. And it looks as if Instagram would be worth about $100 to $200 billion right now. Now, granted, it might not have had the same level of success had it not been able to cooperate and share data. But what's interesting is within about 40 days of one another was the best and likely the worst acquisition in tech history. And they looked remarkably similar at the time. And the best, you would argue, maybe other than the acquisition of YouTube, which was, I think, less than $1 billion. But Mark Zuckerberg bought Instagram for $1 billion. It's worth 100 to 200, if not more now.
Jesus.
And within a month or 45 days, the worst acquisition in tech. Do you remember what it is?
I'm thinking it's Yahoo.
Yahoo
exactly.
Buying. Fuck, what did they buy? Was it MySpace?
Tumblr.
Well,
I wrote that story, Mr. Scott Galloway.
I know you did.
Yeah.
So Facebook acquires Instagram for $1 billion. It's worth $1.2 billion.
Oh, no, it was Tumblr. It was Tumblr. Yeah, that's right. Oof, that was yikes.
I'm sorry, it's worth $100 to $200 billion. Yahoo / Marissa Mayer acquires Tumblr for $1.2 billion. And I believe about 7 years later, they sold it for $3 million.
Damn.
Yeah, it's worth nothing now. I
It's
just
worth
ran into
nothing.
some Tumblr people. What a great site that was, though. You know what I mean? It really was. I like Tumblr a lot. It's a very innovative site. But you're right. It's just, this is just, come on. This is what Mark Zuckerberg played from the Bill Gates Bayerberry playbook. Sorry, this is what this is. We'll see if they can decide if Facebook will make the argument, Meta will make the argument that there's plenty of competition and that there's lots and lots, there's, whatever, blue sky, whatever. But the fact of the matter is that two things, both for Google and for Facebook. When have you seen a new, fresh social network get built, if not buried? Like, Snapchat is doing its level best, but Mark keeps stealing his things because he can't buy it. He couldn't buy it, and so he decided to bury it. That's what they did with Snapchat. And when have you last seen a new search engine that really had any kind of traction? And you were close with a guy who did the one who left Google and tried to do it. It's impossible. Yeah. Nobody can switch. The switch costs are too high. And then when Apple does a deal with these companies and makes them...
Hot take, a new search engine wouldn't actually do anything. I think Google created an issue, kind of, and then I think that now that issue is self-reinforcing, such that people might say that they want a new search engine to find websites that aren't just basically Reddit or Wikipedia. But the problem is now I don't know if anybody even makes websites that aren't those two websites, unless you're in some like very hyper-specific niche. So even if you did have some search engine to archive stuff on the internet now, if you're a good writer or if you can work on something, you'd probably rather just post on Substack or Reddit or whatever else, and you wouldn't actually, I don't even know if there are other websites to discover that much,
de facto map or whatever map or search engine, it sort of puts the nail in the coffin for every other competitor. And the similar thing we just talked about with the tariffs. If you can get an out like Apple did, you're great. If you can't, like your furniture guy, you're fucked. Like that's really it. And this is
corruption. It's corruption everywhere.
Corruption. Yeah.
It's an autocrat. It's not systemic. And also, just to put a fine point on the concentration of industry, this is happening up and down industries. U.S. higher education is a cartel. There's 2 great universities in every city, and the people who give you accreditation such that you have access to student loans are run by the incumbents.
Right.
My company, my old company, L2, got acquired by a large research company that everybody hates and everybody uses. And I couldn't figure out after they acquired us the series of decisions they made. I felt like it was George Costanza, where everything I thought they should do, they did the exact opposite. I just didn't understand the decisions they were making. And it finally dawned on me about 18 months later, and I'm just speculating. I'm like, I think they thought, okay, we'll pay 3% of our market cap for this company because they're nipping at our heels around CMOs. And if they will squeeze them for cash flow, and then we'll put them out of business. I think I've just been aqua killed.
Yep, aqua killed. That's what it is. Yeah,
and it's like, okay, a competitor goes away, they get some cash flow back, and quite frankly, for 2 or 3% dilution, just not having someone running around nipping at your heels, establishing a wedge in your business. Yep. And I remember thinking, why on earth are they doing nothing with us? Why are they not driving the business?
Why do not they understand me? I'm a genius, right? I've been there.
They've domesticated me.
Domesticated me, not them.
Yeah, I mean, pour me with my big fucking bag of money. But
I know.
But this is what happens.
You did get a bag of money.
The conspiracy.
That's what they have. They have bags and bags of money.
That's
everybody.
Right. They show up to an entrepreneur and they say, "Tell you what, we're going to make you rich. Just stop bothering and competing against us. Stop bothering us and stop competing."
In this case, Trump ain't playing, so we'll see where it goes from here. I think one of the things that Meta is doing.
It's something I've argued in chat before too, but nobody likes my point. But I also think that it's a bad environment when companies are created with the sole goal of selling to a huge tech company. And I think it feels like the majority of startup people are like that. Like if you create a company, what's your goal? My goal is to sell to Google, sell to Amazon. That's my goal. I'm literally just here to exit at a highly profitable rate in, however many years it takes for one of these big companies to acquire us. It seems like that's like the goal.
I got texted by a metaverse.
Wouldn't Substack disprove that goal? It was founded in 2017, unless you don't think Google search was already functioning like that already. Well, I feel like Substack is largely powered by people linking to it from Twitter and from like Reddit, basically. But it's just like these areas that are just social media-esque sites. Like Substack is a general site for anybody to write on. There used to just be more. The internet used to be a larger place in terms of the psychological space that it manifested in, I guess. Like there were different sites dedicated to different things specifically, instead of all of these kind of like indexing sites that are like, I don't want to say social media, that's not the best way to describe it, but every site is basically just trying to host as much and as diverse amount of content as possible. And it's like, whatever.
Data. Like, can you believe this? And I'm like, yes, I
can.
Sure we can. And by the way, if they take off Instagram, good for capitalism. If they take off WhatsApp, good for capitalism. If they spin off YouTube, good for capitalism. We're capitalists, Scott and Kara, because we think that's good for this country. It's good for competition, and maybe you'll do a little better in your other things if you have to not just if you can't just buy your wife or husband or whatever. It's good for everybody. All right, Scott, let's go on a quick break. When we come back, Blue Origin sends an all-female crew into space. We must be very careful here, but nonetheless, Potatoes. We'll find out what Scott has to say. Oh, I can't wait to see what you have to say. Anyway, we'll get to that next. Scott, we're back. El Salvador's president says he won't order a return of the Maryland man who was mistakenly deported. President Bukele, who I'm just going to call sleazy club owner, appeared with President Trump at the White House. By the way, he wasn't wearing a tie. I think it was it wasn't very stately of him to appear looking like he's about to, do an ecstasy dance or something.
But nobody cared.
The two appeared as Trump administration was digging into its heels, refusing to bring Garcia back to the U.S. At one point, Salvadoran President Bukele called him a terrorist. There's no proof of how can I smuggle a terrorist back into the country? Stop it, you unctuous piece of shit. A Supreme Court ruling is directing the government to, quote, facilitate the return. That's a weird word. Now Trump administration is arguing that what facilitate means saying they just need to remove any obstacles to return him, not actually bring him back. Also, the agenda for today's White House meeting, Political reports a team of defense contractors is pitching the White House on a plan to expand deportations to El Salvador. I'm not sure what's more frightening, the legal implications, the administration cozying up to another unsavory leader, which this guy is. This one calls himself the world's coolest dictator. He's certainly the world's most oily dictator I've seen of late. He just seems just completely just in it for the money. He's very popular, let me say, in El Salvador. I know a lot.
If Trump gets his way and starts deporting Americans, how do you feel about the next admin turning around and deporting everyone involved in J6 and the elector scheme? I don't know, dude.
The people from Salvador, and they like him because he cleaned up a lot of the gang violence there by just arresting everybody. Very similar to the Philippines with Duterte. But of course, he's gone overboard, as they all do, with unlimited power. And so they're just pretending this guy's a terrorist. And just, when reporters were justifiably asking about this, Trump mocked them. Then Rubio jumped in about that the Supreme Court has no purchase over the way the government decides to do foreign policy. Only the president does. What a waste of breath that guy has become. So anyway, thoughts?
Disgusting, shameful, Rubio.
Look, El Salvador was the murder capital of the world, and so this guy's very popular. But basically, he just started rounding up people who had, a tattoo that said they had a gang affiliation. So there's tremendous collateral damage there, and you have to decide: do you opt for rights and with some crime and inconvenience and cost, or do you go full autocrat? And we said this on the last show. When you round up people, it takes a different complexion. This is a form of rounding up people. They're just some innocent people being rounded up. And what is just insane is these people supposedly, are Christians, right? They're all very fond of holding the Bible. If you know that you have taken an innocent person and sent them to a hellscape, and Bill Maher summarized it perfectly. We can bring a man back from space, but we can't get someone back from El Salvador. Of course we could get them back. Of course we could get them back. And then the weirdest moment was this weirdo Kristi Noem posing with guns after having a Sephora explode all over her face. It felt like a fucking Cinemax film where she was going to start having sex with all the prisoners.
Yeah,
it's like,
I agree.
Oh, that was disgusting.
This is just a snuff film. This is weird people. And also, you don't hold Bibles when you start taking people and sending them incorrectly, unjustifiably. It's like, for God's sakes, have you no sense of decency? It's just.
And why wouldn't Bukele take our money and create a Guantanamo there? That's what he's doing. Why wouldn't he take our money? It's good for him, and he doesn't care who is innocent. By the way, it's not his business to care who's innocent or not. But if we send someone who's innocent there, and it looks like many of them were or had no criminal background that were sent to these prisons, the Venezuelans in particular, because Venezuela won't take these. Their people back. You can't send them to prison. You just can't. Put them in another country and let them go, I guess, if you have to do with this heinous stuff you're doing. But to put them in a prison and they're guilty. I mean, was it 60 Minutes showed up? They had 75% of them had no criminal background whatsoever. They just had a tattoo to their mother with a crown on it. Just really, look, I mean, I'm sorry, if that was the case, Pete Hegseth would be in a Salvadoran prison. He's got a lot of tattoos. So it's really, the worst thing is them trying to.
What video are they talking about? Didn't we watch this on stream?
After Trump promised he would follow
what the Supreme Court
said, he's not following what the Supreme Court said. The same thing they're doing. They were supposed to let back in AP into the cycle, into the press cycle. They're barring AP even though they were ruled against. They just don't do it. They're lawless as a government, essentially.
Yeah, but I think you summarized it perfectly. I don't understand the whole idea of roundups. We said on Slash Show, just be careful. When you tolerate this, just wait for the knock on your door. And the other theme this goes to is the following. The only thing I know about these people is who's not being deported, and that is rich people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You're
I
right.
can think of a lot of criminals, rich criminals and stuff.
Well, you're again, in America, the whole idea of a constitution and laws is to protect the most vulnerable. The rich are protected by the law, they're not bound by it. And the poor are bound by the law, but not protected by it. And I can't name a person. Nobody in the top quintile of income earning Americans or who was here illegal who has money has been taken. This is what is so mendacious, so un-Christian, so un-American, such a violation of our Constitution, is that the basis of your quality as a government is how the poorest and most vulnerable are treated. You could take the top 10 fast food companies, do a statistically significant sample of raids, and say 22%, 25% of McDonald's or Jack in the Box workers are undocumented. We're fining you $100,000 a day per percentage. And guess what?
What are your thoughts on the cruelty is the point compared to before 2025? I think to some extent now, I think it is. But even though MAGA will grin and bear it, I don't even think most MAGA, forget conservatives or Trump voters, I don't think most MAGA is necessarily as on board with it. It's just unnecessarily cruel, like for no good reason. I don't think there are big gains to be had here. I think it's just kind of wild. Put production mobs in biolabs. I'm just trying to get this research out. My shit is expiring before it can be researched with the productivity shit, so there's no point in having productivity. I'm just trying to use them all.
But you'd end it. Here's the dirty secret. Immigration is the secret sauce of America, but the most profitable part of immigration is illegal immigration because they pay Social Security taxes, but they don't collect Social Security. They pay taxes for our cops and firemen, but they don't call cops because they're worried about being deported. So we have turned a blind eye. If we wanted to stop this problem, we would find the employers. But we're not interested in doing that. We want to pretend that this is a runaway problem. And to be clear, it did get runaway. It got out of hand, 250,000 people crossing the border in December 23. But folks, we have purposely ignored this problem because illegal immigrants are super fucking profitable.
Except, you know what, Scott? They're profitable in terms of creating prisons and putting them in it. It's profitable for a very different group of people, is that we round them up and we put them in these camps, which is what we did with the Japanese, and a shameful part of our history. You know, a lot of these people are also, like, let's figure out who, like the woman who got grabbed off the street, remember that video with all the people in the masks coming up to her? She has not done, they found out she's done nothing wrong. She's done nothing wrong except write an op-ed that was vaguely and politely against what was happening. Like, she just, and now foreign students here in this country are so scared, and I've heard from many, are scared of saying anything or doing anything. And if you have even a minor, like, weed violation, you're getting taken. Like,
oh my God, my brain just, wait, who's, oh shit, oh, my kick thing just freaked out. My bad. Holy fuck, I just heard like 3 different voices. Sorry, Jesus.
Like, she just nothing wrong. She's done nothing wrong except write an op-ed that was vaguely and politely against what was happening. Like, she just, and now foreign students here in this country are so scared, and I've heard from many, are scared of saying anything or doing anything. And if you have even a minor, like, weed violation, you're getting taken. Like, whatever excuse they can have, something you wrote or something else, you can get taken. And you know, this is, you should have to appear. It's called habeas corpus, everyone. Requires a person in custody to appear before a judge. It's one of the core fundamental rights that protects against arbitrary state action. And he is trying to suspend habeas corpus for ridiculous reasons, for ridiculous and nonsensical reasons, that we're all in danger and we're not. So anyway, world's coolest dictator, you're not cool. You're uncool. If you have to call yourself the world's coolest dictator, you're not cool. And speaking of not cool, let's move on to some lighter news, other wastes of time and money. In a giant publicity stunt for Jeff Bezos, 6 women are launched into space aboard a giant penis. Lauren Sanchez, Katy Perry, Gayle King, and 3 others made a 10-minute trip on Blue Origin's New Shepard rocket and returned safely to Earth, thank goodness. Noted science aficionados Oprah Winfrey, Kris Jenner, and Khloe Kardashian watched from the launch site in West Texas. It's the first time an all-female crew has been in space since 1963, and yes, Scott, they did fly above the Kármán line, just so you know. So, reaction, Scott?
I don't know if you heard, but they called Houston and they said, Houston, we have a problem. And Houston said, what is it? And he said, well, you should know what it is.
Epic.
Actually, Kara, I was hoping that we'd get to see them masturbate because I'd like to see them.
Jesus Christ.
I'd like to see them defile gravity. I could keep going. I could keep going. Look, hey, look, at the end of the day, fine, good for them. We do a lot of superfluous things.
I get it, but this is not. But here's what I'm fine. They can fly up there with their outfits, their slinky outfits, whatever they want to do. Here's what I don't like: pretending it's a feminist movement. It's just not. It's just a bunch of ladies, and their interviews show that because they're talking about their eyeshadow and their eyeliner and etc. They're going up there. It's a total PR stunt. You are not here to save women. I'm sorry. If you wanted to save women, you'd be saving the woman who was grabbed off the street. You'd be saving all kinds of things, or you'd be pushing up against Facebook and saying we really shouldn't be doing things to young girls that make them feel bad. Like, this is not. That's all. Of all the things you could do to help women, this is not one of them, and that's how I feel about it.
You want to know who a real,
have fun.
Sorry, you want to know who a real female astronaut is? Sally Ride, a PhD in physics. Learned how to operate that crazy robotic arm, and as Megyn Kelly would say, openly lesbian, and spent a ton of time in space. Didn't make a lot of money. I mean, Sally Ride is our astronaut. These folks, I hate the idea.
There were some science people on board. There were some
science people.
Whatever there were, but still, it's just a stunt. It's a stunt. It's not feminist. It's just a stunt. And how much fun Oprah and all the rest of you have. But there's some serious shit happening. So maybe stop pretending you're doing.
Have at it. I don't resent them for it. Have at it. Have fun.
Have at it. Yeah. I just don't like the feminist thing. Okay. Last thing. Sally wasn't openly lesbian, just so you know.
No, she wasn't. Well, no. I was a play on. Notice how no one has ever described me as openly heterosexual. No one has ever said openly heterosexual podcaster. That was my favorite part about her attack on you, as if you're not allowed to be openly lesbian.
I am openly lesbian.
She's openly lesbian. At least you'd have it. At least, good madam, you'd have the dignity to be a closeted lesbian.
Closeted lesbian. I was never really. I wasn't closeted. That's not true. I was not openly lesbian at the beginning of my journey of lesbianity, which started at age 4. But we're not going into it with Megyn Kelly. What a she devil she is. Anyway, last thing. Bill Maher says he wasn't high at his White House dinner with President Trump, even though he also claims that Trump was, quote, gracious and measured. The comedian described his March 31st visit with the president during a monologue at the top of his.
What was the point of this Bill Maher visit? Like, you won't believe it, guys, but off camera, he's a lot more normal than he is on camera. What were we supposed to take from that? I don't understand.
Friday show. People felt it was controversial. The dinner was organized by illustrious statesman Kid Rock. Bill said that he and musician, quote, share a belief that there's got to be something better than hurling insults from 3,000 miles away, although Bill's pretty fucking good at that. Here's what he had to say about his interaction with Trump.
He's much more self-aware than he lets on in public. Look, I get it. It doesn't matter who he is at a private dinner with a comedian. It matters who he is on the world stage. I'm just taking as a positive that this person exists, because everything I've ever not liked about him was, I swear to God, absent, at least on this night with this guy.
Okay. I'm going to be on Bill Maher's show in a couple of weeks. I think you are too. Are you going to be on soon?
No, I was supposed to be on Friday, and I had a tough time trying to figure out a way to be on with Steve Bannon. I'm something about the idea, in a little way, normalizing Nazi salutes. I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know how
Good
to
for
thread the
you.
needle there.
That's right. You talked about it.
I called you and asked your advice.
I said don't go.
I called you and asked your advice.
Yeah, you're a great panelist there. Go ahead. You start. I have some thoughts too.
Look, I think Bill Maher did, and Joe and Mika did the right thing. I think when the president calls you and says, come to the Oval Office, I think you go. And I think that him trying to show, him not immediately going to the kind of polarized, this guy's a fucking idiot, and acknowledging that he's a charming guy, or that maybe trying to provide some comfort that he's not as crazy as we think, and he's self-aware and he listens. I think that's important. The only thing, and this might be my bias, is that someone who is so angry and aggressive, and I'm talking about the president now, against people. I've heard this about President Trump, that when he meets you, he's nice and he's charming, and then a few minutes later, he'll basically say vile things about you to his 200 million followers. I think someone who's nice to you to your face and then shitposts you behind your back in a way that really hurts your reputation, I think there's a word for that. Asshole. I much prefer someone, I think you're like this, I think you're more likely. Who do you want? It's like if you're going to be critical of someone, try and do it in a constructive way to them personally, and then speak well of them, or at least gently behind their back. I think that is the worst role model for our young people.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead.
But I'm glad he did it. I think he was smart to do it. I think I think it's a dignified thing to do. I thought it's an impossible needle to thread, because people who hate Trump are angry at him for going. They're angry at him for acknowledging the president has some positive qualities. I think it's kind of an impossible position or needle to thread for Bill.
Well, here's what I think happened. He was getting very sharp on Trump, very sharp, very tough, and they decided to neuter him a little bit by being charming. I think he has been doing some really, he tries to do the down the middle contrarian thing a lot of the time, but he has been to some of the sharpest attacks on Trump among comics, and which there are many, by the way. So I think I thought they were trying to neuter him, and it worked in that regard. Now, look, I think it's right to go to the dinner. That would be really interesting, but to say, oh, look, he's charming in person, like, I'm sure Goebbels was thrilling at a cocktail party, my friend. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, sure, yeah, lots of people, by the way.
Mussolini was great at the party.
Mussolini was so much fucking fun. He put a lampshade on his head, and we dance all night, and the tarantella. I don't know what to say. Like, I just am like, so Bill. I will bring this up with Bill if he lets me on now. But was he lying to you at dinner or to the world? Which one? Because he is a terrible person publicly. Terrible. The stuff he did today, terrible. And there's nothing charming about keeping a person who is unjustly jailed in jail and then laughing about it and then haranguing reporters about it. There's nothing, charming about most of the things. There's nothing charming about ruining your friend's business. There's nothing charming about it. So honestly, that's what I kept thinking of. Like, I'm sure, like, any nasty piece of shit is charming in person. And there are a lot of them that I have dealt with. But you should have gone, but you don't give me this. He's charming, because he's not. He's just not charming. And he'll probably, the minute you go after him again, which I hope and pray you will, and I know you will, actually, because he doesn't pull punches a lot. Sometimes he does, but he doesn't really as a comic. So the minute you go after him again, he's like, I was so nice to him. I made him dinner. I showed him off the White House. I showed him my bedroom, whatever. He's going to come after you. So that's, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, but I probably, would you go to dinner if he asked us? Do you think he'd ever ask us? He doesn't give a fuck about us. But yeah.
I agree. We're not on his radar screen. I said this about Joe and Mika. I believe this about Bill Maher. I think if the president calls you and asks you to come to the White House, you go.
I'll go. I just wouldn't be as polite in person. I wouldn't be like, oh, hey, can I have a roll? That's the kind of thing. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'll tell this to Bill's face when I see him. Anyway, Scott, one more quick, because I do that, Bill. I say things to your face, that I say in front of your back, behind your back, anywhere near your
He's
back.
my hero.
I know.
That guy's my hero.
I know. I'm glad you didn't go, Scott Galloway. Now I like you even more. Ugh.
Go on.
Is that possible? Good for you, Scott Galloway. Good for you. I know you like being on that show, too.
I do. I love it.
I know. No, have him back, Bill. Don't be a douche, and also have him back. All right, Scott, one more quick break. We'll be back for wins and fails. Okay, Scott, let's hear some wins and fails.
Well,
May I start?
Yeah, you go ahead. Start, Karen.
Let me start. Let me just say two things. Television is so happy place for me these days, watching different things. And this weekend, there's two shows. G20 with Viola Davis, where she plays a kick-ass woman president who, like, kicks ass. They go to the G2 summit. There's a South African guy who takes over all the G20. It's called G20, excuse me. And she kicks ass and wins it. It's like Harrison Ford's Air Force One. And let me just say, I love Viola Davis. I love her kicking ass and killing South African terrorists. Or maybe they're from Australia. I don't know. They have that accent. So good. It was so bad and so good at the same time. It was Air Force One, but Viola Davis. So there was some good acting in there, too. Fan-fucking-tastic. Second one, Hacks, the season premiere. Again, two women, Hannah Einbender and Jean Smart. Oh my God, it has risen a level of it was already one of my favorite shows. Yeah. This season, the two of them go, at some point I'm like, just kiss you two, because they're insults of each other and they're going back and forth. And then there's a poignant moment in the first two episodes about heartbreak, and I just love this show so much. So win with these badass women, I have to say, and they're just wonderful. The fail is obviously Doge falling short of its goal. It was supposed to save $2 trillion, and it went to $1 trillion. Now Elon said in a meeting that it's $150 billion. Dave Fahrenthold, as always, he's now at the New York Times, showed the math to be wrong. Again, that it's probably even less money that he's saving, but we don't even know how much he's costing for the savings. That's not in this. So he's not saving any money, and he's causing incredible harm and cutting things without thinking about it and doing it surgically. So we're not benefited as a people on stuff we should reform government as everybody thinks. So what an incredible waste of our time and energy to have this ridiculous person prance all over the place saying he's saving money, and then of course he's not delivering. It's the same thing that this is a theme of his life right now, is over promising and under delivering, whether it's the Cybertruck, whether it's autonomous cars. This is just such a ridiculous thing, this Doge thing, given how much energy and time and pain it has caused people unnecessarily. That is my fail.
I like it, and I was going to do a prediction, but I'll try and reshape it as a win and a fail. Okay. The fail is I'll just piggyback off what you said. Essentially, if this audit proved anything, it's that there's a lot less inefficiency and waste and fraud than we thought. This is about as clean a bill of health as anyway, because they were dying to find fraud, and they just didn't find very much. And most of their claims of fraud and savings ended up to be fraudulent themselves, and that they were lies. And we predicted he would exit. He's gone. I think he's already gone. I think he's already figured out.
He was with Trump the other night at that stupid WWE.
Yeah, but that's proximity to power. I think Doge. I think Doge is basically the curtain is closing on Doge. It just didn't work. It was a distraction, fine, but it's not working. The reality is Americans, again, see above, not willing to endure pain. They have to face a hard decision here. It's the hard thing about the hard things, and that is if we're serious about being a country that doesn't spend $7 trillion and take in $5 trillion in tax receipts, there's only two things you can do, folks. You either have to cut entitlements or raise taxes, and the answer is yes. And at some point, we're going to have to figure out a way to do that, or just wait till we get shoved in a corner, and the people who own our debt can basically start calling the shots, which they're doing now. In a company that gets so highly levered, basically the bank owes you. And this is what's happening to us. Our creditors are beginning to owe us. This is Doge. Doge was jazz hands. A clean bill of health. When we decide to elect a grown-up, we're going to have to make some very hard decisions here. My win, and it's sort of win, but this really was my prediction, you're going to see a flurry of deals. The art of the deal, the basic premise was, okay, he's a negotiator. He's bringing these people to the table. First off, we just need to dispel the notion this guy's a good business person. He's a rich kid that would have made more money if he'd taken all of his massive inheritance and put it into ETFs. His business career is basically a series of bankrupted companies and unpaid subcontractors. So let's just stop this nonsense that he has any fucking clue what he's doing in terms of business. He has unwittingly inspired unbelievable torrent tsunami of deals, cross-border trade deals.
Between other countries.
With us. The EU is talking to Latin America. Japan, South Korea, and China are talking. This has set off incredible incentive for a ton of nations around the world to start thinking about free trade zones, to become more dependent upon each other, to take the cost of reconfiguring their supply chain and excising America from the supply chain. They're thinking, how can we make up for some of that lost economic growth that this is going to cost us? I know, let's lower each other's trade barriers. The unwitting, unintended consequence of this is that the U.S. is about to trade off a lot of its own prosperity, and it's going to leak to other Western nations who are talking to each other and cooperating and coordinating now. You're going to see trade deals between Mexico and Canada. You're going to see trade deals between the EU and China. This is going to the intended what they claim they were going to accomplish for America. They've accomplished for everyone else but America.
Yes, true. They're going to get all the avocados in Canada, and Mexicans are going to get all the good maple syrup. You hear that, people? It's finished. Avocado toast and pancakes are done for us as Americans.
Much less lumber or gypsum drywall. You want to talk about the cost of building right now? Gypsum drywall from Mexico or lumber?
By the way, I just renovated my house. I'm so pleased that I did it last year. My contractor said it would have been double.
I'm interviewing Mark Carney this afternoon. What would you ask him?
What? Get out of the way.
He reached out.
What? Which show?
I wanted to do it for Pivot of Raging Moderates. He said he wanted to do it for Property Conversations. I think let's talk about young men.
Yeah, good. Well, I heard you have, by the way, you have another podcast you didn't tell me about?
Which one's this?
With the men thing, with Scaramucci and Smirnovich.
Oh, that's a limited series. He called me and said, let's do 4 pods.
Yeah, it was good for your book coming out. Just remember Scott's book. Good. I'm very excited. You cat around on me quite a bit. That's okay. I don't mind. I just want to know about it. I didn't know about it.
It's alcohol. I hope it has nothing to do with our relationship. I just like to wake up with a strange man's lipstick all over my
bed. Okay.
Slip that in there.
I know you did. I'm ignoring it.
Slip that in there.
I would like to make your book.
Defile gravity. Defile gravity, Katy Perry.
I like it. I want to make
Let me hear you roar, you 90s pop star wonton bitch. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
She defied gravity. All right. Okay. There you have it. Those are good. But please, for the love of God, watch Viola Davis kick some ass. It's so good.
I think that's just an attempt to address your PTSD and pretend that Vice President Harris won the election.
No. Vice President Harris couldn't have done this. This was just trust me. Watch it and then call me back. I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you. You'll love it. It's so much fun. Because she's won an Oscar, isn't she? She won an Oscar. Whatever. She deserves an Oscar. She won an Emmy, an Oscar, whatever. This woman is like top actor, just chewing up the scenery. It's so enjoyable. She did one a TV show years ago called How to Get Away with Murder, which you should watch again. Where she also chewed up the scenery with her Oscar-winning amazing acting abilities. Anyway,
Very talented.
She's so talented, but I love that she's doing this and just punching people in the face with the machine. The whole thing. It's fantastic. Anyway, we want to hear from you.
Sorry, Spam, but I want to know what you think about the satellite images of the CCOT facility. Don't know, don't care. Those satellite images are refreshed how often? Who knows? We have no idea whose blood it is. I don't know how old the image is. I don't know why you guys care about this fucking thing whatsoever. Everybody knows that facility is fucked. Everybody knows that it's an ultra fucked facility. Everybody knows the crazy, horrible shit that goes on there. Like, we all know. I don't know what the point is of seeing a picture of it or whatever, or what you guys are, or what the point is of everybody spamming about this. Yeah, it's this is all known. Also, for people who were asking about the video of the...
It was supposed to be a tough-talking message from Homeland Security.
This is the unhinged video that we're being spoken
Chief
about.
Kristi Noem from inside El Salvador's most notorious prison. But as Les Trent reports, it's a $50,000 Rolex on her wrist that ended up making headlines.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is facing intense backlash today for this photo op at the world's most notorious prison known as the Hellhole.
If you come to our country illegally, this is one of the consequences you could face.
She recorded the video in El Salvador in front of a cell holding dozens of bare-chested, tattooed prisoners.
Do not come to our country illegally. You will be removed and you will be prosecuted.
This is messed up.
Now, even conservative commentator Megyn Kelly is blasting Noem for using the prisoners as, quote, props.
To use them in this way as her backdrop to show us how cool she is and how tough she is gross in her skin-tight shirt with her hair perfectly curled and coiffed. I'm embarrassed for how she's presenting herself.
Noem is also taking heat for her watch.
Does Megyn just hate her? Because I've never heard... this seems like a thing that Megyn Kelly would be totally on board with.
Also taking heat for her watch. It's a $50,000 Rolex.
Wow.
Watch dealer Avi Hiavev showed us a similar Rolex at his store, Avi & Company.
This is a heavy
Right,
watch.
it's full solid gold, 18-karat gold.
A spokesperson for Kristi Noem says today she bought the watch with proceeds from her New York Times best-selling books and sees it as an heirloom that she will one day pass down to her children. Meanwhile, touchdown in Greenland for Veep J.D. Vance and Second Lady Usha to a Space Force base, and Vance sure delivered a colorful assessment of the climate.
How we doing? It's cold here. Nobody told me.